Today, the Supreme Court that overturned Roe v. Wade heard yet another abortion case. And this time, the state of Idaho is arguing that its near-total abortion ban takes precedence over the federal law that requires hospitals to provide emergency medical care to all patients. This is not an abstract argument, to be clear. Just listen to what the U.S. Solicitor General, that's the person that argues for the U.S. government for the court, says is happening in Idaho right now.
Today, doctors in Idaho and the women in Idaho are in an impossible position. If a woman comes to an emergency room facing a grave threat to her health, but she isn't yet facing death, doctors either have to delay treatment and allow her condition to materially deteriorate, or they're airlifting her out of the state so she can get the emergency care that she needs. One hospital system in Idaho says that right now, it's having to transfer pregnant women in medical crisis out of the state about once every other week. That's untenable.
That is the absolutely hellish situation in Idaho, where pregnant people in desperate need of emergency medical care are having to be evacuated to other states because their own state, Idaho, abortion ban prohibits doctors from performing abortions unless they are sure the mother would otherwise die, and threatens doctors with prison for violating that law. The Idaho Capital Sun reports that air transports out of state for pregnancy complications at one of the state's largest hospitals have increased from 1 in all of 2023 to 6 in the past 4 months. Air transport, medevac, helicopter. The hospital's chief medical officer says if the pace continues, that number could be 20 patients before the year is over. Dr. Dara Cass is an emergency medicine physician in New York City and a former regional director for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and she joins me now. It's great to have you here. I want to just set the context for the law, EMTALA, that's at issue here, which is the sort of law that requires, passed in the 1980s. It's very interesting because I hadn't really known about it.
You shouldn't.
It's basically the federal law. It says, like, you can't kick people out of your emergency room if you're getting any federal Medicare, Medicaid money.
Yeah, so the Emergency Medicine Treatment and Labor Act set the standard that if you showed up to an ER, we would take care of you first and foremost, regardless of your ability to pay, regardless if we liked you, regardless if you showed up and you didn't have any insurance. We would take care of you, we would stabilize you, and then we would decide, do you need to be admitted or transferred? That's it. Before that, people were being basically ignored at the front door, put back in
You're like, oh, you don't have money.
No. And bleeding, right? So they'd be bleeding at the front door of the hospital. They would say, we won't take care of you. We're going to let you go to a county hospital, a public hospital, and we're going to put you back in your car or wheel you down the block in a stretcher or a wheelchair. And they would literally be dying on the way. This federal statute said, no, that's not going to happen anymore anywhere in the United States. The entire United States will be safe for emergency medical care. And that's what's at stake right now.
Now, this is not just an issue in Idaho, we should note. I want to read from the Associated Press reporting about this. This is emergency rooms refuse to treat pregnant women, leaving one to miscarry in a lobby restroom. One woman miscarried in the lobby restroom of a Texas emergency room as front desk staff refused to check her in. Another woman learned her fetus had no heartbeat at a Florida hospital the day after a security guard turned her away from the facility. Complaints that pregnant women were turned away from U.S. emergency rooms spiked in 2022 after the Roe v. Wade was overturned, federal documents by the AP reveal. How do you deal with this as an emergency room practitioner in a state like Florida or Idaho or others that have abortion bans?
I mean, what's happening right now is these states are forcing doctors to deny care that they know how to give. Life-saving care. And we're hearing these stories now over and over because people are finally coming forward and telling their story. Before this could have been happening and we didn't know. Now we know what's on the line. We know the stories of the women that are bleeding. We know the women that are infected because they need to end their pregnancy before they can have a delivery. And, that's what's on the line. And it's happening every single day in the United States where abortion is banned.
In the Supreme Court arguments today, the conservative justices seemed interested in sort of the idea of a sort of fetal personhood. There's constitutional rights. Today, Alito questioned the Solicitor General about the interests of the unborn child under federal law. And I want to play Alito here talking about how the hospital must stabilize the threat to the unborn child. Take a listen.
The hospital must stabilize the threat to the unborn child. And it seems that the plain meaning is that the hospital must try to eliminate any immediate threat to the child. But performing an abortion is antithetical to that duty.
First of all, to my mind, there's no child here. There's a fetus, and that should be clear. What do you hear as a medical practitioner in an emergency room when you hear the justice saying that?
So he's creating a situation that doesn't exist. right? There is no saving the fetus without saving the mother. And what he's creating is this idea that there's a conflict between the life of the mother and whatever emergency this fetus is having. The only way to save that fetus, to deliver that baby eventually, to have a full, healthy pregnancy, is to save that mother. There is no conflict, and he's making it out of whole cloth.
Right, and to the extent that there is, a conflict, or to the extent that there's a situation in which you have to end the pregnancy and perform an abortion to save the mother's life, that's precisely what's at issue here. And my understanding from the arguments today is that the way that Idaho state law works and other state laws works now, as not preempted by EMTALA, is that doctors wait around until there's a certainty of essentially death before they can intervene.
Yeah, and what they admitted today basically is that you don't get a light bulb. It's not like, oh, this is when you can act and this is when you can't.
Right, of course.
And at the end of the
day, as a clinical decision, that has to be impossible.
It's impossible, and it's gut-wrenching to watch somebody continue to bleed in front of you when you know what to do and you can't do it because you're afraid that A, you'll get arrested, but B, you'll do it and it won't work because it's too late. Like, at the end of the day, it is time to stop interfering, stop letting politicians get in the middle of the emergency department and patient care, and just say, we want to do our job and save people's lives.
Dr. Jara Cass, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is